Entrepreneurship can be really hard, and when you're doing it by yourself, trying to navigate the terrain, it can almost be impossible. That's why we created the Entrepreneur Circle. Every episode, you're going to hear from incredible entrepreneurs who are in the same trenches that you are in. And we're going to talk through what's working, what's not working, whether it be in marketing, finance, or anything in between. We're here to talk business and figure out how each of us can rise together. So welcome to the circle. Let's dig in. Hello. Welcome to this episode of Entrepreneur Circle. I'm very excited, as I am always, but this one is going to be a different episode, guys, because we have somebody with over 25 years of experience, not only in building his own companies, but now consulting other companies. I'm here today with Mickey Lyles. Mickey Lyles is an entrepreneur, a consultant, and a leader in the industry, focused specifically on how to create sustainable success for businesses across various industries. When we talk to him, you're going to hear all the different lines of work and different industries that he has helped grow from a systems landscape, processes, technology, and of course in the numbers, in the revenue, and in operations. So I can't wait for you guys to dig into this. He is the CEO of Measure Growth Partners. He is working hard with multiple different companies to help them grow, and he's here to share his insight on what works in scaling your business.
Thank you so much, Paresa. The pleasure is all mine, and I look forward to connecting with your community. Yeah, so I'm what they would call a serial entrepreneur. I opened my first business when I was 23 years old, and I'll be 51 this year, so I've been doing it about, 28 years. I've been in all kinds of industries, you name it, from selling ice cream and cookie dough to pest control, plumbing, retail businesses, mattress stores, real estate, and I've had my consulting company for 14 years. And one of the things that we really find that is different about us where we're at today is there's just a lot of consulting companies that teach theory or things they learned in books. But I have my dirt road solutions from grinding it out from where I came from. And then I also own 9 operating companies today. So the same problems that your listeners are dealing with today, I still deal with. I mean, some of these entrepreneurial problems never go away. We just get better at dealing with them. But, whether it's employees or marketing, insurance cost, all of these things I still deal with. So it makes me a colleague in a lot of ways. Right now, I am actively in the restaurant business, mattress store, pest control, the consulting company, and commercial real estate. We have multiple locations of the restaurant business, which is how we got up to 9, but 6 different unique industries. And we can certainly talk about, how do I do that and what's my belief on that. I have a lot of clients that are like, I just don't know how you do it. I can't keep up with one, but it's all about creating the systems and processes that we hear about. And honestly, I'm so exhausted hearing all of these online social media gurus talk about systems and processes, because I know how valuable the systems and processes really are, but they are muting the value of them by talking about it. And so I think a lot of entrepreneurs are just sick of hearing about it. Like, I'm just sick of hearing about it. That's all fluff. Like, I still have to show up and do all the hard stuff every day. But I'm telling you, scalability lives in developing the systems and processes that answers the questions for you when you're not there. I moved back from college and was selling cars. I had no idea where I was going. I was addicted to golf. All I cared about was playing golf. And I met a guy on the on the golf course, and he said, "Hey, you should come sell cars with me. We've got an opening in the sales division." And contrary to what they all say about used car salesmen, at least from years ago, it was one of the best decisions I ever made, because I was actually a very reserved person. I would have been probably considered more of an introvert, and getting into that sales role taught me how to just open up and how to talk to people and how to read people. And so it was a huge part of my career. But it was interesting. My mom had moved one little town over, and I was over having dinner with her one night, and she said this: "Let me tell you what this town needs. It needs another locksmith. I've been calling the locksmith for 3 weeks, and I can't get anybody to come change the locks on my doors." And my little 23-year-old mind said, well, wait a minute, there's opportunity. What is this about? And so, believe it or not, even in our generation, this was before an iPhone, right? This was before Google. So I went to the local grocery store. I went to the magazine section. I found a trade magazine, And I turned to the back of it, and I found this little locksmith trade school out in Kentucky. And I went to Kentucky for, I think it was 6 weeks. It was either 6 or 8 weeks, but I think it was 6 weeks. And I went out and I learned how to make keys and how to rekey locks and make car keys and all that stuff. And I came back and I got a $19,000 from the bank, and I bought an old used van and a bunch of old used locksmith equipment. And there I was, 23 years old, in business. And that was my very first business. And I can assure you that had I known then what I know now, I would have a locksmith business doing millions of dollars instead of the journey I was actually on, because I didn't know what I didn't know. But it was interesting, and I learned a lot. When I was 25 years old, I did get a little bit tired of like getting called at 2 o'clock in the morning and having to go unlock somebody's car at the local bar or at Walmart, and just always being on call and always having to be the one that was doing the thing, right? Like, you don't really own a business, you own a job. And at that age, I had this idea. I was like, and I'll tell you where it came from because you might find it interesting. I was actually playing in a poker game. And these are the same guys that I'd been playing these little home poker games with just for fun. Every time that phone would ring, I'd say, all right, boys, I'll be back in 45 minutes, going to let them in the car, go make another $100 or $65 or whatever it was. And one of the guys showed interest in it. He was like, man, I have to get up and go to this welding shop every day and do this hard job all day long. And you just like get to go make $100 here and $100 there. And what he was seeing was the positive side of it. And this is very important for entrepreneurs because we get jaded pretty quick. We start looking at this gift that we have of being an entrepreneur and being self-employed and controlling our own lives and our destinies, and nobody's telling us when we can take our lunch break, and we start resenting it. And here I saw this guy who saw it as an opportunity, and I said, you know what I'll do? If you're interested in doing this, how about I lease you all of my equipment? I'll lease you my van, all of the equipment. I'll teach you how to do it. You can take over the business, and you can make as much money as you want to make. If you want to take the call at 2 o'clock in the morning, take it. If you don't answer the phone. But on the first of every month, you owe me $3,000 for that lease payment, and I don't care what you make over that. Well, he did that. And at 25 years old, I stumbled into learning what licensing was, even though I didn't know it had a term, even though I didn't have proper legal contracts, even though I probably didn't claim it right on my taxes. I found myself creating mailbox money and not having to go to work. I'm like, wait a minute, there's something going on here. How do I create multiple sources of income? And that's when I discovered Bob Proctor, who's no longer with us on the earth, but his teachings live on through things like YouTube. And I learned about building multiple sources of income and how to start creating those different businesses. So it was interesting how I ended up out of that business. And just to close the circle on that story, after he paid me for about 2 years, he was like, how long I have to still keep paying you this $3,000 a month? And I said, well, technically forever, but I was smart enough to know that the van wasn't going to last forever. The equipment would eventually break down. And I ended up selling him the company for about $150,000. He didn't have any money. I owner financed it for him. Those owner finance payments came in for like 5 more years. And then I just parlayed that money into other ventures. But it was a very profitable exit for a guy that didn't even know what the word exit meant at that time. There's a couple of things that, when you're invited to be on a podcast, you want to leave the listeners with a piece of you. And some will buy in and some won't. But that's literally with everything. So I always use this analogy. If you take Robert Kiyosaki, I always say his last name wrong, or you take Dave Ramsey, they're both extremely wealthy, and they both sell the exact opposite of each other. One teaches you to live a debt-free lifestyle. The other one teaches you to use debt like it's going out of crazy to build massive wealth, right? So one of the things that I want people to know about my journey is that I believe wholeheartedly you have to be convicted about what you believe. And that means if you believe Bob Proctor, you believe in building multiple sources of income. But I was listening to another podcast last week, and there was a very successful entrepreneur on there in his mid-30s who had exited a company for $100 million. And he talked about that he does not believe in serial entrepreneurship because it keeps you distracted. And the way to build one big business and a lot of money is to focus on one business and to give all of your time and energy on one business. So before I share a little bit more of my bouncing around journey, I recognize that there are people that don't necessarily believe in that, right? Like they are putting all their energy in, and I do think we have enough time for me to share my biggest success story, as a consultant on how that focusing on one business can pay off massively. So here's the thing, though. If you don't know what you don't know, you're 25 years old, you don't know what you don't know, you're not a big reader because you just haven't gotten to that place in your life yet. You're just like, you would rather spend your Friday nights playing poker games with friends or Saturday mornings playing golf with your buddies, not reading the next self-help book or business book, right? So you don't know what you don't know. Then you probably don't have a lot of resources. And so building one big business normally takes a lot of resources in those early days. I mean, you're pumping money into marketing, you're pumping money into branding, you're pumping money into process development. You're trying to wear 37 hats at one time, and you're trying to do this while you don't have the knowledge of what even a big business is. Because let's face it, most small entrepreneurs, they do it because they're looking for freedom. They're tired of being told when they have to clock in, when they can clock out, when they can go to lunch. They just want freedom. And so let's take a plumber, for example. He's like, well, I'm the plumber. I'm the one doing all the work. And yet the man is making all the money. Well, I'm going to go be the man and make all the money. Well, you're an excellent plumber, but you have no idea how to run a business, and you don't know that until you go get a van and you wrap it and you put a sign on the building and you go, now I own Mickey's Plumbing. And you go, next what? What's next? Well, where's my phone calls going to come from? I've got to be a professional marketer now. I got to be a bookkeeper. I got to handle insurance. I've got to deal with damage claims. Oh, I need an attorney. I mean, the list goes on and on and on, right? And so when you're in that infancy and you're just getting out there, it's just all about making some money and having some time. And so the reality is Bob Proctor's way of building multiple sources of income is a much more feasible path for the average person that doesn't have a windfall of cash. So if you look at my journey, before I got into the locksmith business, I was a mortgage broker. I had, gotten back from school, sold cars for a little bit, got into the banking world and became a mortgage broker. So I tried my hand at my own mortgage business for a while, got licensed in the state of South Carolina, had a small mortgage company where I did mortgages, but mortgages follow a lot of federal interest rates and financial trends and things like that. So one year it's great, the next year you're going bankrupt. I pulled my money after selling a locksmith business, went in with 3 other partners, and we opened a used car dealership because I knew how to sell cars. So why not be the boss there? Let's go sell some cars. I owned a cookie dough and ice cream shop in the mall because how hard can this be? Everybody loves ice cream. You put a teenager in there and make some money, except the teenager doesn't show up 80% of the time. And then who's the person that has to show up and scoop the ice cream when the teenagers don't show up? And what happens when the freezer power goes out in the middle of the night and all your ice cream melted overnight? So we learn so much and we become so weathered and so educated through all of these journeys, through all of these different business journeys. So there's a couple of cool stories that, quite frankly, I haven't shared on any other podcast or some things. One that just pops in my head that I'll share with you, but let's just get to the nuts and bolts of it. So in 2008 and 2009, when the economy crashed, we went from selling about 50 cars a month to selling 4. And so for all intent and purpose, we were out of business. Now, I like to tell people I've never lost on a business. In that one, I didn't. We made money until we didn't make money. And we sold off the rest of our inventory and all went our separate ways. Nobody went bankrupt. Nobody lost their houses. I would consider that a success when it comes to a business reaching its failure point, right? And to be fair, a lot of people lost a lot during that 2008, 2009 recession, so I consider that a win. But in that moment, I had a wife and I had 3 kids, all under 9 and under, and I needed income. So for the first time in 10 years, I went back into the workforce. And I went to work for a company, a chemical manufacturing company. They manufactured pest control products out of New York. And so here I was, this sort of country bumpkin from South Carolina. I went to work for this larger company in New York. And it was an amazing blessing on my education and life because I got to travel all over the country on somebody else's dime, meet all kinds of entrepreneurs, all kind of business people in the pest control space and manufacturing space. And as a entrepreneur and having that entrepreneurial spirit within my bones, I was always observing things that other people weren't observing. And so I'd started keeping a notebook of pest control companies that I would meet. And then I'd meet them a year later and they had grown $500,000. But then I would meet another guy and a year later he was the exact same size. And I'm like, well, what's the difference in these two organizations? Like, why is one growing at such a rapid pace and the other one isn't? So that was occurring in one pocket of my life. And then meanwhile, in 2009, and this is a podcast of its own, and I have a book coming out in May, and some of this story will be in that book. But I found my dad dead in his house, in his kitchen floor, 58 years old. And your dad's not supposed to die at 58 years old. It's just not the way it was meant to be. But it had happened. And so as his oldest son, I was the executor of his will. And I will tell you that after about 2 weeks of digging into everything and trying to figure out what the process was, because I'd never been through that before, my dad was worth $17,000. I'm not saying he had $17,000 in his checking account or savings account. I'm saying his total net worth was, well, let me even rephrase it. It wasn't even net worth. He had a negative net worth. But he had $17,000 total. 401k, savings, checking, it doesn't matter where it came from, hidden in the kitchen drawer, 17 grand. And for me, I was like, holy cow, like, what is now? There is no inheritance. There's no one coming to save me. And I coined this phrase, no one's coming. And that's what my book's all about. No one is coming to save you. Your parents aren't coming to save you. Your spouse is not coming to save you. Your children aren't going to save you. Your business partners aren't going to save you. The bank's not going to save you. Like, whatever you're going to have in this world, you've got to go create. And I look down and I'm like, I'm working a job, and my dad worked a job for 58 years, and this is what it got him, a big fat zero. And I was like, you got to get back in. You got to get out. You're going to get stuck in this trap. You're going to get stuck in a trap of building someone else's dream instead of going to build your own. And so I found my exit plan out of that job to get back into being an entrepreneur, and I came out of it believing I was going to be a consultant because I had interviewed these people so much without them knowing they were being interviewed. I was taking them to dinner. We were going to lunch. I was sitting with their secretaries and with their sales managers and their marketing managers, and, well, how'd you do this? And I'm keeping this little notebook, and I'm like, I'm going to build a big pest control company, and I'm going to teach other pest control companies how to do it. God didn't have that exact plan in store for my life. The consulting company took off better. One of my very first companies was this similar story that I told to him. I know how to grow your pest control company. He brought me on board as a consultant, and I worked with him for 6 years. We scaled his pest control company, and listen, this is not all on me. I brought a lot of fresh ideas. He had a great executive leadership team. There was 7 of us that worked together on that team, but I did pull them kicking and screaming day in and day out into a new way of thinking. But we scaled that company. They had been in business for 53 years when I met them. They were doing $5.5 million. In 6 years, we were at $21 million. So from 5.5 to $21 million. Sold that company to private equity for $79 million. And that's when I knew that these strategies and the things that I was using had merit. From there, you can imagine other pest control companies started calling. We want you to do the same thing with us. I'm working with multiple pest control companies right now, but those same theories have now traveled. We've helped butcher shops. We've helped bakeries, micro schools, tutoring programs, plumbing, HVAC, anything in home service that all applies to. There's very few businesses that are operating to the consumer world that can't learn how to sort of create these growth strategies. And so from there, I was like, well, wait a minute. Now my consulting company helped him hit a home run. How am I going to go build all of my companies using these same strategies? But there's an important part you have to remember to that. How many years had they been in business when we got started working with them? 53 years of branding. The company that I'm working with in North Carolina right now, they had never done $6 million in revenue. They had been in business 81 years. Ironically, they were at the exact same spot, $5.5 million in gross revenue when I met them. Last year, they did $8.2 million. They've never done $6 million in 80. Now they've been in business 84 years because I've been working with them for 3 years. So I don't have 80 years. I don't have 50 years to go do that. So what I'm doing is I'm taking those same strategies and I'm doing it in micro bursts by taking a mattress company from $0 from a startup, $1.5 million first year. Taking a group of small breakfast and lunch restaurants that would do $900,000 or $1 million a year, 1.2 to 1.5 million per year per location. So the strategies and the thought processes behind that scalability, they do travel to different industries. But when people check me, and I don't mind people checking me, I can handle myself, but they're like, well, why didn't you go build a $40 million pest control company? Because it can't be done in 3 years. It takes a long time to scale a business that long. It takes a long time to build a customer base of 42,000 people that trust you to send you a check every single month. So I'm going to intermix two talks that I do if when I give business speeches. One of them is going to be more on the personal side, where it's about how do we keep motivated and use some strategies that you need to know as the business owner. And then we'll mix in a couple of key components. But we know there are hundreds, if not thousands, of business books out there that teach business strategy, whether it's Traction or the E-Myth or, Build a Business You Love. There's tons of business books where you can learn some of these things. But I can tell you that most small business owners aren't readers. Very few of them will read cover to cover, and they just have bigger fish to fry. And so I think working with someone like me, it's like, wow, I can get the information of 30 or 40 books and stack onto that 20 plus years of trial and error and experience. Yeah, it costs a little bit more than buying a book, but the results, sort of speak for themselves. And so here's where that gets in. Here's what they need. Number one is they need to get real honest with themselves about what they're trying to accomplish. Where am I trying to go? Too many business owners don't have clarity. Let's go back to my plumber example. I just want to own my own plumbing shop. That's not enough. How big do you want it to be? Do you want it to be $500,000 a year or $5 million a year or $50 million a year? How many hours a week do you want to work? What are you willing to put into it? How much money do you want to make out of it? Because I assure you, in my 14 years of consulting, I've met business owners that go, dude, if you show me a way to make $150,000 a year, take every Wednesday and Friday off at 12 o'clock and work no weekends, I'm good. Like, that's their path. And then I've met those guys who's like, absolutely not, to the moon and back, $20 million company. I want to sell for $40 million. I want to have the yacht, the 3 houses, and all the things. We have to have a roadmap. And most business owners have no idea what their roadmap is. We call it a success blueprint. If you work with us, that's what you fill out. We want to know what you're trying to accomplish. And so you got to start there. That's that. When you talk about systems and processes, see, most people think a system within their business, and there are systems. Don't get me wrong. There's a whole systematic way to approach the business. But where I make the biggest gains with my clients is getting them to look at themselves in the mirror differently. So number one, clarity. And listen to this. You'll hear this saying, finding clarity in uncertain times. There's no such thing as finding clarity, creating clarity in uncertain times. You have to create clarity. Where am I going and what am I trying to do? So by the way, what am I trying to do over the next 30 days, the next 90 days, the next year, the next 3 years, the next 5 years, the next 10 years? It's not a one answer. It's a moving target, which leads me to this. Is there ever not uncertain times? There's always uncertain times. 2009 happened to me. It happened to other entrepreneurs. I didn't create it for myself. So just because you feel like you get the world wrangled in, growth is going to create uncertain times. It's going to create having to spend more money on marketing than you're comfortable with. It's going to create the need for you to hire people in order for you to buy back your time, that you're going to look and say, I can't afford another $50,000 piece of payroll. You go, well, if you're going to get to this goal, that's the next step in that process. So number one is clarity, creating a roadmap for yourself. Number two is understanding the vehicle you're in. So I'm developing this whole little proprietary thing. I grew up, Paresa, on a dirt road in rural South Carolina. I have actually 4 brothers in some form of stepbrother, half-brother, and we're all very different, do all very different things. Most of my brothers make money with their hands, where I make more of my money with my head and knowledge. And so I'm developing this sort of thing based on this dirt road solutions, right? Because I think people overcomplicate it. If I can come from living in an 1,100 square foot house built by HUD with a single mom and really come from nothing. My dad and my mom got divorced when I was 2. He dies at 58 years old in 2009. He's only worth $17,000. Like, no one's coming to save me and get to where I'm at. Literally, the Walmart greeter at your local Walmart can do what I'm doing if they will invest in themselves and take the time to figure out what their roadmap is. So the second one is you have to understand your vehicle. And here's what I mean by that. Imagine you're on that dirt road and it's muddy and it's raining. Can you get off that dirt road if you're on a motorcycle? Probably not. Can you get out of that dirt road if you're in a Lamborghini? Probably not. Where I grew up, you need a big monster truck that's jacked up with big mud tires on it, right? To get off that muddy dirt road. And so you have to understand the vehicle you're in. So, well, how does that relate to business? I had a baker come to me one time, and I started with step one. Let's get clarity. Where are you trying to go? She said, how much money do you want to make? I need to make $100,000. I said, bring home? She said, yep, bring home. And I reverse engineered this business, and I won't bore you with all the mathematical details, but I reverse engineered this business that she was going to have to sell 500,000 cookies in order to make $100,000. She was setting herself up for failure from the very first thought of going into that business. It was never going to be able to give her the solution she thought it was going to create. Now, if she wanted to go build a business, hire a little bakery manager and make $30,000 a year out of it as one of her MSI side hustles, more power to you. Let's go add and stack all those on. But that business was never going to make her $100,000. And if she hadn't met me, she'd have been like all the other tens of thousands of entrepreneurs. She'd have spent all of her life savings opening it. In 2 years, she'd been closed down, failed, and lost everything she had. So we have to understand the vehicle that we're in. Are we in the right business to meet the desire that we have? Not all businesses are scalable to 10, 20, 30, $50 million. The restaurants I'm in, for example, the largest location, it's a franchise, the largest location that we have worldwide does $2.5 million a year. The AUV, or the average unit volume for all the other locations, is $1.2 million. So the likelihood is that your revenue is going to be somewhere around $1.2 million. If you're in a very good market, you might do 1.8, 2 million, 2.5. That business is never going to do 5 million. It's never going to do 10 million. We have the data on it, right? So you understand what I'm saying about making sure we're in the right vehicle. You probably have listeners right now that are fighting this uphill climb, and they think they're just trying to get over a hump, and they're never going to get to that hump because the vehicle they're in can't get them where they're trying to go. Building a consulting firm is tough. It's a lot easier for me to help some of my clients grow a lot faster and a lot higher top-line revenue numbers than even we can. And the reason why it's tough is it takes an ultimate amount of trust, and small business owners don't trust. If you look at small business owners that are struggling, they're probably struggling financially. They're going to be struggling with stress and time, but most of them are going to be struggling financially, even if they're paying all the bills, even if they're profitable. Let's say you have a $2 million company and the owner is taking $200,000 out of it, 10%. If they grew up on that dirt road I grew up on, they might feel they're doing fantastic. What they don't know is that with me, you don't even have to increase the $2 million revenue, and I can probably show you how to make $300,000 out of the business instead of $200 million using something I call revenue harvesting. So I do want to answer your question directly. To grow a consulting company, it takes a lot of personal connection, a lot of trade shows, a lot of referrals, a lot of networking events. Here, just in the last 5 or 6 months, have we started using podcasts as platform to be heard, and it's been working very well. I've been doing 3 or 4 podcasts a week, and that has generated interest. But generally speaking, the small business owner who's struggling with money, they don't put their hands on their face and then go, you know what I need? I need to spend more money on a small business consultant. Let me go Google business consultant near me. It just doesn't work. I spend almost no money on Google ads or things like that because people just don't do that. It has to become from Paresa saying, hey, you got to call my buddy Mickey. He helped me with my business. I promise you, you're not going to regret it. There's going to be an ROI, and then it's just authentic connection. But over the last, I'd say probably 18 months, we've been doing it a few years now. It started gaining traction because for the first 7 or 8 years of my business, it was called something different, and we rebranded when I went into scale mode, something that a measure and name could play across really the world, or certainly the United States. My original consulting company was called Palmetto Consulting and Business Development, and Palmetto is tied to South Carolina. It was a state tree, and it was just me. And I didn't really, even though I knew how to scale other people's businesses, I wasn't trying to scale the consulting company because I knew that my clients needed me. I had the secret sauce. And so I charged appropriately. I did very well, but it was 5 or 6 clients at the time. And that was my stable. Now we've created programs where we have tiers, and you can still work with me if you're in a certain tier, but you also can get the same principles and the same strategies that I deploy at a much lower tier, and it's more scalable and there's more, faster delivery mechanism. But yeah, I mean, just fully transparent, it's hard to grow a consulting company because you got to build trust, and it's very difficult to build trust through a TikTok video or through a LinkedIn post or something like that. I can build a service-based company using Google Ads and the right marketing plan and revenue harvesting with the right technicians trained the right way 10 times faster than I can grow the consulting business. Get ready to spend money if you want to grow your coaching and consulting business. Everybody's trying to sell you something. I went to a conference in Atlanta, Georgia, early December called the Small Business Expo. They had 4,000 small business people there. You would think that was like taking candy from a baby if you're a business consultant. I left with over $100,000 in pitches to me on how I'm going to grow my consulting company. So everybody's trying to sell the coaches and the consultants marketing plans, how to blow yourself up on YouTube, let us handle your social media, let us create AI automation. Everybody's trying to sell you something, and I get that. But some of the stuff you need, and it's valuable, and one of them is a book. And I do believe that a book for a coach and consultant is a gateway into credibility and into being able to share your unique strategy towards how you help your clients and grow, whether it's personally or professionally, depending on the type of consulting that you're doing or coaching. But doing a book is very expensive, and I am very excited about it. It's going to be a blend of some of my personal story and some of the client stories, and then it's going to have my 9 dirt road solutions to building the life and business you want, which I'm excited about. If they take my not my advice, but my desire, the book will be called No One's Coming, 9 Dirt Road Solutions to the Life You Want. But we'll see, because the biggest part of publishing a book is the marketing plan behind it and how you don't just write it and they go, good job, you wrote a book and nobody knows and nobody cares. How does it leverage you as an expert in your field, and how do you find your uniqueness? And so for me, it's a big part of my personal story, which is in 3 years after my dad died, I found myself divorced, emotionally broken, financially broken, as an employee with no businesses under my belt and less than $5,000 to my name. And 10 years later, I had 9 companies operating with a multiple 8-figure revenue coming in. So, you can change your life. It doesn't matter where you're at, you can change your life. And really, I make my living helping other people grow their businesses. I serve my purpose by creating inspiration to any human being that anything you want, you can have. And I know that that's an age-old story. There's been motivational speakers for 300 years talking about that. But I'm the guy that sat at the dining room table with tears rolling down my face saying, everybody's selling snake oil. This is not true. It can't happen to me. It's, nothing of good will ever happen to me. And then you just go create it. You just literally go create it and stop waiting on somebody else to come save you. So I have 2 sites. If you're looking for a speaker at your event, I love speaking at business conferences and leadership, doing leadership coaching within corporations. You can find me personally at mickeylyles.com, mickeylyles.com. If you are operating a business and you do want some help, I would encourage you to go to immeasura.com, and let me just share briefly how I got to Immeasura. So Ephesians 3:20, now to him who can do immeasurably more than all we ask or imagine, immeasurably more than all you can even think about, according to his power at work within us. Here's what's so important about that Bible verse. According to his power at work within us. He didn't say he would do it for us. He said he's capable, and he has the favor on us, but you have to go do it yourself, right? According to his power at work within us. So that's where Immeasura Growth Partners comes from, is I kind of took out of immeasurably the word Immeasura. I don't know if you're going to be able to post in the link. I had Casey send you a lead magnet that is a free business clarity quiz. And it's a 20-question questionnaire that's going to gauge where you're at and what your knowledge is of your business and how we might be able to help you. And then from there, we also set up a free discovery call. You're not wasting our time. We do them all day, every day. Free discovery call. We will tell you very quickly if we're the right fit or if we can help you, and we have pricing tiers to meet everybody's budget. So our goal is to help you grow. Our business is helping you grow yours. I mean, I just love helping people, and I look forward to meeting some people from your audience. I know that it's going to be great.
Thank you so much, Mickey, for joining us on today's episode of Entrepreneur Circle. I hope that the audience found this incredibly helpful. I know I did, and I will definitely be following you, visiting Immeasura's website, and stay plugged into your practices because this was truly so helpful. So thanks for joining us. I appreciate everyone listening in today. We'll catch you on the next episode of Entrepreneur Circle. Remember this as you go about your day today. The ideas that are on your heart for a reason. Do not ignore them. Tune into them. Tap in, lean in, understand them, and pursue them. If not you, then who? If this episode was helpful to you in any way, please like, share, comment, subscribe. It does wonders for our efforts, and it helps us to continue our mission of inspiring entrepreneurs and giving them the resources and the perspective we all need to take it to the next level. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Paresa Noble, and we'll catch you next time.